it seems to me like you have a lot of forgiving to do or overcoming to do from childhood, difficult things, situations that you've been through. How can people learn to better let go of their past in that way? I'm aware we've talked about the chip on the shoulder. It can be a good fuel, but it's kind of toxic when used for a longer term. A lot of people spend their time in the past ruminating.
Yeah.
What is a better way to let go of the things that you think were unfair? Maybe you don't get to have closure about them. Maybe you don't get to have that final conversation with that bully from school or your parent or carer or whatever that didn't treat you in the way that you wanted. How would you say people should let go of their past more effectively?
If you want freedom, if you value freedom, you can't possibly have it as long as you played the victim role. And even if you were physically victimized, and, you know, my mom, I don't look at it that way. She was physically intense, and you could call it abusive. I prefer not to use that language because that also puts in that place. I never even told anybody about that experience until maybe 15 years ago. I was now in New York, and I was with this group of young African-American and some Hispanic kids, all had single mothers, all from really troubled backgrounds. And I started talking to them about various things. And I'm trying to get across that biography is not destiny. And I was giving them different examples of people. But I could just see him, I could just mind read, look at this big, tall, white guy, and he's wealthy and easy for him, right? So I told him everything, things I never told anybody. And every single one of them was crying their eyes out. I was crying too. But then I got them to see that, like, none of that makes you who you are. None of that controls where you are in your life. I was like, if my mom had been the mother I'd hoped she'd be, I would not be the man I'm proud to be. So, and she did many beautiful things. But, you know, if I was a well-fed kid, would I be providing 30 billion meals for people? Would I work this hard to feed people that I'll never meet and never know and will never say thank you to me? I'm not looking for it. No. I mean, I'd love to believe I do. I'm a good person. You're a good person. But I wouldn't have had that hunger without that. So that's where that belief comes from. That's like, life has been happening for me. I don't know if you can relate to this. My bet is you could. Maybe your viewers or listeners can. It's like, have you ever had something happen in your life that was horrible? I mean, it was painful. You'd never want to go through it again in a million years. You wouldn't want anybody else to go through it that you care about. But after 5 or 10 years, you look back and you say, I never want to go through it again. But now I see the wisdom in it.
I'm glad
it's like it made me care so much more. It made me so much stronger. It made something in me more. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that, can't you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the world in which something happens to you when you're younger. So for me, school wasn't that fun, quite heavily bullied, quite alone, quite isolated. And at the time, you kind of just get through it. You don't really realize it's just life, right? That's just childhood to you. The what is water to the fish question. And then you grow up a little bit, you kind of realize, that probably wasn't so good. That probably wasn't so healthy. And then you learn a little bit more about yourself and you start to realize, well, look at all of the ways that I've had to compensate for that. Look at all of the ways that it's held me back. Look at all of the beliefs that I have about myself. And God, if only that hadn't happened, then I would be here or I would be there. And then you realize, well, the light side of all of that dark stuff is usually the stuff that I'm most proud of myself for.
Yes.
So the fact that you were maybe a little bit alone in childhood means that you're very self-sufficient when you're an adult. Or the fact that you didn't have anybody to support you means that you have no concern about working on your own and continuing to take a bet on yourself, so on and so forth. So you end up having this really strange loop where you go from unconscious incompetence in that you've somehow been through something that you really hate, to this sort of awareness of how it's held you back, to this awareness of how it's propelled you. And then you have to get to this really difficult place, which is, okay, so this is a thing that I kind of wish hadn't happened, and yet I'm grateful that it did. And it's like a, you know, the idea of quantum superpositions. It's like a psychological superposition that you need to hold in your head at the same time. You can't collapse it down into one. You need to hold both of these things. It's like, yeah, that's fucked. Like, that shouldn't have happened. I really wish that, and had you have been able to see you, had you at 36 have been able to see you at 12, you'd have picked them up and given them a hug and said, I believe in you and you don't deserve this. But it needs to happen to you if you're going to become the sort of person.
And I don't hold them separate.
Yep.
I put them together. And when you put them together, all you have left is the truth. And the truth is it had a higher purpose. It was meant to be. Now, I don't believe like everything's meant to be. I think situations are meant to be, and then it's our job to choose how we're going to use them or be used by them, right? I think that's the difference. But I think there's nothing to forgive. I know there's nothing, like people say this, but you have so much to forgive. F that and forgive. There's nothing to forgive. I mean, it's like if I get to a deeper truth, a deeper spiritual truth, a soulful truth, it's all like soul contracts. Like, so we're all here for something more than ourselves. And it's not until you realize that you stop the childhood thing of, I need to forgive people, or I need to, maybe you want to think about what you want other people you want them to forgive you for, or you can make an apology, because we all screw up. We all do stupid things. We all do things we're not proud of at different times. The secret is, do you do something about it, or do you just ruminate or beat yourself up or pretend it isn't there?
Well, that balance is really, really difficult. Between turning pain into motivation and recognizing that it's there. So you're not denying that it's there, but you're also not wallowing in it, but you're also not just using it as the only pain, but you're also realizing that you've had to alchemize it, transcend and include it in Wilberian language. It's a delicate balance. And I think that there's a few things in life, and the older I've got, 36, the more I've kind of realized that a lot of realizations just come along for the ride as a byproduct of getting older. And we can do a lot of the things. We can read the books, we can go to the seminars, we can attend the online events, and we can expedite some of these realizations. But there's some insights that are just hard won by time.
Some that's true with, I think you're right about that. But I also think it can be accelerated by who you spend time with. I've had the great privilege of having some great mentors. They're all 18 to 20 years my seniors. So, some I knew when I was, 20 and they were 40, and now they're 80 and then, 82, 83, 84, and I'm going to be 65.
You're just holding on to the coattails in their wake.
Because they've given me a look at the pathway of life. We're not all the same by any stretch, but there's certain fundamental things you go through. I remember some of them would tell me things, like when you're 40, you're going to think this or feel this. I was like, read between the lines.
Shut up.
You're full of it. You know what you're talking about. But there were certain things that it turned out to be really true. So some of those you experience, but then once you've experienced enough of them, you don't have to wait to experience everything. You can start to project, wait a second here. There's some real deeper truth here.
Yeah.
And one of those, I think, is it's not hard. I'd invite you to consider, you don't have to hold both. The holding both is like the piece of being afraid that if I really enjoy myself, I won't have the same level of drive. Once you're a fucking achiever, the drive is never going to leave you. It's just a matter of now you can do it more elegantly if you choose to.
Agreed. Yeah, there's a cumbersomeness to doing it when you grip very tightly.
Yeah.
And this ease and grace thing, finding more joy, finding more fun, learning to let go, that's something that I'm really, really obsessed by at the moment. I'm interested, you mentioned there about your the amount of work that you put in, reading these forms, the preparation that you do for all of these different events, and even with the alchemy that you've done, letting go of things from your past and the way that you've turned it into a version of you that you're incredibly proud of. I'm interested in how much peace you have in life, whether you would say that how often you're able to access peace with all of the things going on.
It was the most peaceful, most happy stage of my life by far. I look at things in terms of seasons. I remember in early 90s, I interviewed, I don't know if you've read The Fourth Turning. Did you read that book by chance?
No.
Oh my gosh, please read it. I think you'll find it really valuable. I was coaching President Clinton. And in those days, I also coached Gingrich. I was on both sides of the aisle because I'm an independent, right? So I want to help both sides. So I left literally the president, and he had this book. And I was reading, it was a big, thick book. It's, what's the other one they have? It's basically 500 years of American history, Anglo-American history. And it was written by the same guys that wrote The Fourth Turning. And I asked him about it, and he told me a little bit about the patterns of generations and how they work. I was fascinated how it shapes history. I go to Gingrich, who's a historian, and the same book is there. And so I grabbed the book, and then The Fourth Turning came out a little bit after that. It was one of those throwaway books, at a discount. And I love those books, because they're contrarian. And I picked it up. It wasn't popular, and I read it. And it's a book that basically describes that history has patterns and seasons to it, just like everything has seasons. So I look at it this way. Maybe a simple way to explain it is, I have 5 kids and 5 grandkids. I have a 50-year-old daughter, and I have about to be 4-year-old daughter in a couple months. So I have quite an extreme group. And I think about my youngest daughter or my grandkids, and even for my kids, but most of them are adults now. And I think, like, the world is changing so much. nanotechnology, obviously algorithms, AI, all the things that are coming, robotics, the change, we're at the base of unbelievable transformation. We're going to see more change in the next 5 to 10 years than in the history of humanity. And that's not an exaggeration. Well, there's going to be a huge number of jobs that are disrupted from that. And listen, 200 years ago, 85% of America was a farmer. Now it's 4% and we feed the whole world because of technology. But that happened over a long period of time. We're going to see changes like self-driving cars. There's several cities where they're operating right now, right? Ubers and so forth. How long is it going to take before every truck and every taxi will be there? Well, that means every Uber driver, every taxi driver, who's going to hire a truck driver who can work 8 hours a day? You got to pay for the health care. And they complain
and crash sometimes.
And crash, where you're going to have a 24-hour day, that better insurance, and you get to depreciate the asset. I mean, these jobs are going away. That's 8 million jobs in America. That's as many jobs as we lost in 2008 when the crash was happening. So, and no one's preparing for it. So I remember talking to Obama about it. It's like, this is coming, He goes, well, Tony, I said, has anybody got a plan? Are we going to educate these people? This is going to